Good afternoon to you and welcome to the live proceedings of the Senate this afternoon, being the afternoon of March 7th. The year is 2023. A broadcast made possible through the collaboration between the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation and the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. My name is Gladys Mungai, and I'll be taking you through the highlights in the order of business today. And senators will be considering a couple of motions as well as bills this afternoon. And to just take you through some of the bills, we have two bills that will be tabled or read for the first time before the floor of the Senate. The very first bill given priority in the order paper this afternoon is the Equalization Funds Bill, the Equalization Fund Appropriations Bill, Senate Bill number 3 of the year 2023, by the Chairperson Standing Committee on Matters Finance and Budget. Another bill that will be read for the first time is the Learners with Disability Bill, this being Bill number 4 of the year 2023 by Senators Professor Margaret Kamau and Senator Crystal Asige. And this particular bill notes that education is fundamental right that is enshrined in the Constitution, Article 2, subsection 6 of the Constitution, and that states that any treaty or convention ratified by Kenya shall, per the law of Kenya, mean that Kenya's ratification is of importance in the international conventions that touch on the right to basic education, such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the African Charter on Human Rights and People Rights, as well as the African Charter on Rights and Welfare of the Child. The bill seeks to make provisions on the right to education, and this is pursuant to Article 43, subsection 1F, states that every person has the right to education, and Article 53, subsection 1B states that basic education is a right to every child in Kenya. This particular bill seeks to provide a proper legal framework in order to ensure the actualization of the right to basic education for learners, and these are learners with disabilities in Kenya at all levels of education in the country. The bill creates for the provision of laws to obligate the national government through the Ministry of Education as well as the county governments to carry out their duties in bringing the special needs education of learners with disabilities to parity with normal learners. And the bill also seeks to end the exclusion of learners with disability from the education cycle. The adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Matters Finance and Budget, and this is a report on the finance and budget on the 2023 budget policy statement, is a motion before senators this afternoon. The Chairperson Standing Committee on Finance and Budget will be moving a motion on the adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Matters Finance on the 2023 medium-term debt management strategy, and senators will be resuming debate on this particular motion that was interrupted on the very first Wednesday of March. The year is 2023. The Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill, Bill number 5 of the year 2022 by Senator Danson Mungatana, is another bill before senators this afternoon, as well as the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, this being a bill from the Senate, Bill number 6 of the year 2022. The County Vocational Education Training Bill, bill by Senator Moses Kajwang, is a bill that senators will equally be considering this afternoon. The Senator for Kirinyaga County, Senator James Murango, will be seeking a statement from the Standing Committee on Matters National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations. The business of the Senate is about to commence this afternoon, and now hand over for the live broadcast of these particular proceedings. Enjoy your viewing.
We beseech you to behold with abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Clerk, we have quorum. Sergeant at Arms, kindly proceed to ring the bell for 5 minutes.
The Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Kingi, has directed the Sergeant at Arms to ring the quorum bell, and this is to allow for extra 5 minutes for senators to make their way into the chamber this afternoon for the Senate to commence business. The institution of measures to curb incessant high electricity costs in Kenya is another motion before Senate this afternoon, and this particular motion is by the Senator for Marsabit County, Senator Mohamed Chute, that aware of energy is an essential factor of production and its total consumption is a major determinant of the performance of the economy, with its cost and reliability spurring and stifling economic growth. There is an imbalance in the matter's demand and supply of power, coupled with payments by the Kenya Power and Lighting Company, and this is for the produced power not consumed, and matters fluctuation in the foreign exchange rates contributing to the high cost of electricity. Appreciating that Kenya has made strides in the diversifying its power sources with geothermal plants offering tremendous potential with zero carbon source power, already producing nearly 1 gigawatt of power. The Senate Standing Committee on Matters Energy, the Senate resolves that the committee undertakes an inquiry into the contracts signed by independent power producers detailing the costs, capacity, and duration of the contractual agreements and their implications on affordability of electricity in the country. Also conduct an inquiry in matters discrepancy in the cost of electricity sold to Kenya Power by KenGen and imports from Ethiopia and the independent power producers. The Senate Committee on Energy is also set to undertake an inquiry on the diversion of the electricity generated by Lake Turkana wind power to the national grid, bypassing the inadequately supplied northern frontier counties of Marsabit and Samburu County. The Senate appears to have gained quorum this afternoon.
Please stop the bell. Clerk, first order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Deputy Speaker, you are certainly out of order. Proceed. Take your chair. Honorable Senators, in the public gallery today, we have 260 history and government students, accompanied by 9 teachers from Sagongo High School in Siaya County, who are in the Senate on an education tour. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate, on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Honorable Senators, I would also wish to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, a visiting delegation from the County Assembly of Makueni. The delegation is in the Senate on a 5-day benchmarking visit with the counterpart departments in the Senate. Honorable Senators, I request each member of the delegation to stand when called out so that you may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. Joseph Nzioki, Deputy Chief of Sergeant at Arms. Clarice Komu, Senior Sergeant at Arms. Brian Mutua, Assistant Sergeant at Arms. Joseph Kimanthi, Assistant Sergeant at Arms. Joram Kaunga, Assistant Sergeant at Arms. Anthony Kingo, Assistant Sergeant at Arms. Dennis Kimeu, Assistant Sergeant at Arms. Clementine Muki, the Clerk Assistant. And lastly, James Singao, Research Officer. On behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I extend a warm welcome and wish you a fruitful visit here at the Senate. Honorable Senators, I would also wish to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, a visiting delegation from the Georgetown University Edmund A. Welch School of Foreign Affairs, located in Washington, D.C. The delegation comprises 12 students, 2 university professors, and 1 delegation leader who are in the country on a learning tour and on a 1-day study tour in the Senate. Honorable Senators, I request each member of the delegation to stand up when called out so that you may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. Professor Lara Smith, Professor John Kramer, Waden Osman, as a student. Yunji Kui, as a student. Surya Gabriela Kopol Grabtree, that's a student. I hope I'm pronouncing these pretty foreign to me. Fiona O'Brien, student. Kate Mil Nojibadem, student. Robert Whitelaw. Andrew Erhill. Rory Dixon. Chloe Hammock. Nakita Guitu. Luis Villaquiz, Emily Langlois, Sammy Davis Mochama, the delegation leader, and Peter Gishiri Njenga. On behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I extend a warm welcome and wish you a fruitful visit. At this juncture, walk in, Senator, kindly walk in. At this juncture, I will allow the senator from, where's the senator from Makueni? Senator Enoch Wambua, on behalf of the senator from Makueni County, you will proceed to welcome the delegation from Makueni, and thereafter, the majority leader, you will proceed to give welcoming remarks to welcome the delegation from Georgetown University, and after you are done, the minority leader will rise to give welcoming remarks to welcome the delegation from Sawagongo High School in Siaya. Oh, yes, but the minority leader will proceed to make the remarks, and the Senate of Siaya will also have an opportunity to welcome the guests. Let us proceed in that order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to stand in the gap for my brother, my neighbor, the Senator of Makueni, who will be walking in any time from now, to welcome the delegation from Makueni and encourage them to spend their time well while they are here, to make sure that they learn the procedures of ensuring order in the assembly when they go back. I'm very sure under the guidance and tutelage of the office of the Sergeant at Arms in the Senate, they will get good information, they'll get good advice, they will go back home the better. And just to inform them, Mr. Speaker, through you, that where I am speaking from, this is exactly the same spot where your former Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. used to address the House from. He's now your governor. I suspect that there's something about this chair and senators and governors, but we'll leave that for another day. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance. I also want to join Senator Wambua and the rest of my colleagues in welcoming all the visiting delegations to the Senate this afternoon, the students from Sawagongo in Siaya County, the delegation from Makueni County Assembly, and the students and their professors from Georgetown University in Washington. Mr. Speaker, it's one of the beauties of our democracy to be gathered here every afternoon at 2:30 and not necessarily agree, but at least have the chance to exchange ideas and try and reach to a consensus on many issues that are either a challenge or things that need the concerted wisdom of the people of Kenya. I believe that our visiting delegation, Mr. Speaker, will have the opportunity to listen in to a few of our debates or learn as they interact with the members of staff, senators in their committees in the course of their study, and get to appreciate the beauty of the Senate of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. I wish them well in their study tour. May they achieve all their objectives far and above, beyond what they expected when they set out to tour this Senate, Mr. Speaker. So on behalf of this House, the side that I lead, and Senate as a whole, I welcome and wish them well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, please allow me to join you in welcoming the students from Sawagongo, officials of Makueni, and the delegation from of students from the United States. I believe their visit to Kenya will open their eyes on how we operate here democratically, and this being the Senate, we set examples to the future leaders of this country. I hope the visit here will go a long way in ensuring that when you go back to your country, you will know how we procedurally do our things in the Senate. And for the young people of Sawagongo, I wish you well in your visit. I believe one day, as Baba has said it outside there, Baba.Raila Odinga said, how many of you would like to be members of parliament or presidents of this country? You can be. Your dreams can be achieved. And by that, you showed your hands when he said, who wants to be the president? And almost all of you said you want. So I believe you have a long journey to make yourself who you want to be. Your dreams are real. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Oburu.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to take this opportunity to welcome the students from my county, Siaya, and Mr. Speaker, also to inform the House that this is a very, very strong school in academia, that in last year's KCSE exams, they were #1 in my county. So I take this opportunity to congratulate them for the performance, but also to encourage this group, which is also going to sit this year, to perform better than the ones of last year. Mr. Speaker, as I sit down, I would also like to inform the House that this is the second time this group of students are coming here to listen to us as Senate. But last time they came, Mr. Speaker, there was a lot of tension in the House, Mr. Speaker, and the security team could not allow them to come because of the situation. And Mr. Speaker, this is just because of a very small issue about the leadership on our side, which you are in a position to solve. Mr. Speaker, why don't you just do it so that we continue to work normally instead of having this constant failures? Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you. Lastly, Senator Ledama.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you. I join you to welcome the students from Siaya County and also the students from Makueni County. Before I comment on the visiting delegation from the United States, the two counties produced two very prominent senators and also now governors. Mr. Speaker, the governor of Makueni, the former senator.
What is the point of order, Senator Cheptumo?
Mr. Speaker, today I hear my colleague talking about students from Makueni.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. You're right. The Sergeant at Arms, Polenimo, County Assembly, welcome to the Senate. Now, let me go back to my earlier thoughts now that the floor has been interrupted, but I'll try to see whether I can continue. The two counties had two very prominent senators who sat here. Senator for Siaya and now the governor of Siaya, the distinguished senator, His Excellency, the former minority leader, James Orengo, taught us quite a lot. He taught us to be able to learn, to respect one another. And I always remember one thing that he said. And if these students can be able to follow that, you'll probably make Kenya a much better place than we are making it. That government sometimes eats its own children. So I think if you go with that, you'll be able, revolution eats its own children. And if you go with that, I'm pretty sure you will be able to fight so that when you are the president, when you are the members of parliament seated here, you will be able to make good decisions in a more bipartisan way. For the visiting delegation from Makueni, the Senate is a good place to be able to learn how to deal with members of parliament, how to be able to accord them respect. And also, when you go back there, say hello to our good friend. We had a big fight in the last parliament for the revenue share, and he played a critical role for the amount of money that most counties are getting, given that his county was also losing. For the visiting delegation from the US, I'm very happy that you're here and you're students of foreign policy. When I was a student of political sciences, I was reminded that the American foreign policy goal is on three main things. One is security, the second one is prosperity, and the third one is the creation of a better world. I believe that when you traverse this continent of Africa, and now that you're here in Kenya, you'll be able to see the positions that we take, sometimes a little bit unorthodox, but is what we believe will make our country a much better place. I read yesterday on CNN that the government congratulated the leadership in Nigeria, but then the observers gave a different thing. That will all help in terms of your foreign policy understanding and what can be taken in and what cannot be taken in. I wish you all the best when you're visiting, and I hope that you will not stop in the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. I hope that you will visit the Masai Mara Game Reserve so we can get to spend some of your dollars there, because I represent the people of Narok County where we have the biggest and best game reserve. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
No. I was intervening before he sat down, he left the floor, because there is a very condemned message of fundraising give the students in the high school, which is not very clear, because it's a very condemned message. You know, students need elect advice, either to become presidents or ministers or senators. But your message, Senator Ndam, was very condemned. I'm afraid the students understood what you said.
Senator Kathuri, as you've been told, these are not students from any other school, but a giant school. They are smart. They can decode whatever message you give them. Next order, clerk.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.